make sure this is recording. I wanted to make a follow-up video to the last video I made where I left off building a CI/CD pipeline for a Lambda and API gateway. I came back with a little bit more of an idea of how I wanted to continue to deploy the template and the infrastructure and also the code. So I'm going to go ahead and do that today. The place I left it off, if I remember right, the place that I left it off, I could create the infrastructure and update it as it went through as the code got pushed to my GitHub repository, but all I could do at the moment or at that time was deploy the infrastructure. So if you actually wanted to change the code, you wouldn't be able to do it through here. You would have to actually add it into this template, which is not very scalable. So interesting how that worked. Spun up the pipeline, and then it automatically spun up my template, which is kind of cool and fun to see. So this is the way that it stood at the time of me completing the last video. Let me go ahead and pull up my template or my repository. So here it is, and this is somewhat kind of what I'm going to be following. I found this resource on AWS's website on their blog. The difference is this is a CI/CD pipeline for cross-account deployment. I'm not doing cross-account, and I'm not using the serverless framework. So there are going to be some differences, but the inspiration that I wanted to take from this, and something I wanted to try that I personally haven't done before, was to build everything in code build and then export the artifact from code build to code pipeline, and then code pipeline is able to use what I build in code build in the CloudFormation step that I already have here. In this diagram, I believe what they're trying to tell us to do is, with code build, upload to S3, upload probably the template to CloudFormation, deploy the CloudFormation template, and all that's done through the AWS CLI in code build. I kind of wanted to take this step 5, deploy serverless stack. I wanted to take it out into its own step in code pipeline. So I'm going to have to add a code build step in. So this is where I am right now. This is my CloudFormation step. I'm going to add a code build step before my deploy step. Like I said before, I haven't done this, so this is, again, I wanted to make this more of a learning experience. I want to learn all this in public and have a video to record what I'm doing, and hopefully it will help others who might be looking to do the same or a similar thing. So one of the things I think you can do, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and name this. This is going to be my build step. One thing I saw that you could do, and I haven't done this, I haven't seen this even being done before, is you can export artifacts from code build and actually import them, use them in other stages in your code pipeline. I had never seen that done before, but I wanted to try it out. It looked really cool. It looked like what I wanted to get at. And I'll go ahead and talk about real fast the reason why I like that approach a little bit better. So what I want, ideally, in here, instead of my code being a zip file, what I'm going to do is change this to S3 bucket, S3 key, and S3 version. And not yet, of course, but I will. And what this is going to allow me to do is I can specify an S3 bucket that I want the Lambda function to read its code from. I want to specify a key, so I'll always push to the same key in that S3 bucket, and then I'll give it a version. So I'll make a versioned S3 bucket, and then if I ever need to roll back my code, I just give it the version, the previous version, or the version that I want to roll back to. Doesn't matter which one, and I can give it to it in the template, and it'll just automatically do it for me. I can do that. I can probably further on down the line, I can set that up in code build, or I can just manually push that change, push the version change. Another way you can handle versioning and rollbacks and whatnot with Lambda functions using S3 buckets, if you don't want to use the built-in S3 version, you can push your I've seen this done before, which is the only reason I'm saying it. You can push your newest deployment package to your S3 bucket, and then your S3 key is what becomes your versioning tactic. So you could say you could version it by hash, like the hash from Git is a common way to do it. So it would be, let's say my bucket is called deployment package bucket, and then my key, normally it would be called deployment package. Well, in this case I would call it whatever that SHA hash is slash deployment package. And then instead of using the S3 version as a parameter, my parameter would be the S3 key with the commit hash slash deployment package. And then you could also have a latest version. It could either be latest slash deployment package, or it could just be at the base or the root of the S3 bucket and just call it deployment package, and you just overwrite that deployment package every time you update the code. That's another way to handle rollbacks, but I want to use the versions in S3. I have done versioned S3 buckets before, but this will be a little bit, this is all a new situation for me. So I'm trying to think of which template I want the S3 bucket to live in. It's kind of almost a chicken and an egg type situation. But since I know that I can spin up my entire application pipeline and API by just deploying my pipeline, I'm going to go ahead and say that I should put the bucket in the CI/CD pipeline template, because in the same, or I guess not in the same, similar to this S3 bucket, I just want, I wanted to get to a state where I can just deploy my CI/CD pipeline and everything follows. It goes and pulls the latest code. It updates it, builds it, updates it, and I have some bad drives on my computer, and builds and updates the code, and then deploys the infrastructure alongside it. So that'll be my ultimate goal. So I'm going to go ahead and add an S3 bucket in here. I'll just call this serverless API source bucket. Now there are some extra steps that you have to go through if you want a versioned bucket, and there are a couple other things I'll talk about with S3 buckets that are a little bit new to me that I think are interesting and I want to get into. So this bucket name, I'm just going to call it always the same name, no, I'll make this I'll make that a configurable name. But I will set it as a default. So that'll be the name that I use for this. I'm going to go ahead and update this name. I have a bucket name. Let's see, accelerate configuration. I'm not going to do that. Access control. I'm not going to worry about that. I need versioning and lifecycle configure. This is the other thing I wanted to do. And oops, this will probably become a little bit more apparent as to why I'm doing this after I start pushing things. But what lifecycle configuration is, sometimes they get pretty nested almost for no reason, but let's add a rule in here. This says, so non-current version, transitions, expiration, you can put prefixes on it. What this is this object, this lifecycle configuration does for an S3 bucket is as I'm pushing new code, updating things, what have you, one of the things that I wanted to use it for was this non-current version expiration days. So I can say, I can tell this API or this S3 bucket to automatically expire deployment packages in my S3 bucket after 10 days, after 30 days, what have you. So I'm going to go ahead and just say 30 days is the max. After that, it just expires. ID. I think I might need an ID. I'll just use that. And I hope that's all we need for that part. If not, we'll get some errors in CloudFormation. Go back through. Then there should be something. Versioning configuration. That's the one. This is the other property that I need to configure. And this is what actually allows me to version the objects in S3. So that's pretty easy, the way that it's set up. But this will, let me go ahead and run it and we'll see if it's apparent. But this will allow me to version everything, and then versioning will let me, S3 bucket name, will let me deploy my Lambda functions based off of a certain version in my S3 bucket. Alright, that worked out pretty well. Let's go ahead and update it and make sure that the S3 bucket looks the way we want it to. That didn't work. Property status cannot be empty. Interesting. I wonder if that was for that or not. Status. Interesting. Is there another status that I forgot anywhere? Oh, I wonder if it's for the lifecycle configuration, if it also needs a status enabled or not. Okay. Well, there you go. We'll go ahead and enable this rule. I'm surprised they don't like default it to disabled or default it to enabled. Have some sort of default, since it's, yeah. Or maybe they just assume, or they want you to tell it what is correct. Status enable. Oh, I didn't put the D on the back. It's these little things, they'll get you. I had once someone on my team accidentally put in parameter store, there's a type. It's, pull it up. Parameter store, there's a type for the type of parameter that you're trying to add to Systems Manager, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, there's one. It's called string, but there are also other types. Let me pull those up, just so we have some sort of reference. Type, see, there's type. It's a string, and it's allowed value string or string list, and we wanted the parameter to not be a string but be a number, and so we put number in there, and then it ended up breaking some things. Obviously, it's not hard to fix that kind of issue, but it's those little tiny things. They'll get you every once in a while. So it looks like this guy's gonna go through. There we go. So we have the build in there. We have a bucket now. So I'm gonna go ahead and Move on to, where am I here? I'm going to find code pipeline configurations. And then I need to change this from CloudFormation to code build. So it's in a stage, it's an action declaration, and structure requirements. I can't remember the exact path I go down to get to it. I don't think that was the one. Oh, here, providers. Okay. Which code build? And here we go. There are probably examples and stuff. So we got category. We'll call this build. AWS. And it's code build version 1. Alright. Now we can enter the configuration. Project name. Let's go down to an example. Maybe we can pull out of that. Configuration. I'll just pull that. Okay. Batch enabled. I'm guessing that's not required. Okay. Project name says it's required. Serverless API code build. I am a little inconsistent. Something you'll notice inconsistent between kebab case and camel or Pascal case. I think kebab case is a little bit better when you're doing web type stuff, just because it shows up in a URL more often than not. It looks a little easier, and I think it's more convention. But I come from a C++ background, which means that I'm a little bit more. I started off doing Pascal case and camel case, so, or lower camel case. That's why I tend to navigate or tend to trend towards those. It's also a little confusing because you have stuff like this. This is, you have Pascal case here, but then it also sometimes has to be kebab case in the strings, and it gets a little confusing sometimes. Primary source. Okay. So the way that code build works, it's pretty much just a list of bash commands. Let me go ahead. I need my output artifact. It's called source artifact. It goes there. Input artifact, source artifact. Okay. I think that's what that's asking for. I'm hoping I don't need those two. I'll add them back in. If so, I don't want batches. I don't want to combine artifacts. I'll use environment variables just for fun because I think that this is a super useful tool. I'm going to sub in my S3 bucket name just because that's the only reason why, because it's a parameter. So I'm going to snag this out and I'm going to put it in here. I believe this is the right syntax. We'll find out soon enough, but this is, if you're going to sub something in, you can treat this like a variable, like you would in a bash command. You have type plain text. But what I was talking about, code build, the way that code build really works, there's something called a build spec, and you can either give it to it in plain text, sorry, not in plain text, in text in the file in your template, or you can add it in your source, and once you give it the artifact, tell it where the build spec is, and it'll automatically pick it up. That way you can, if you want to, you can version control your build spec, which is what I'm going to do after I build my code build instance. So, oh, this is the name of the build project in code build. Yeah, okay, so this is what I'll have to do whenever I'll put my code build instance down here, the definition of it, and this is just the name that I'll have to give it, and then instead of hard coding it, I'm going to ref it, and the reference is just saying, well, I'll go ahead and just start doing it, but the reference is just how how you can get an output or return value from something in a CloudFormation template. So these return values, I'll do ref, and then it'll give me the project name. So so that's how you would do it. And down here, I just have to add this guy in. Okay, I'm just gonna rip. I like to do this just because I think it can start to take too long if you just type it all out. I like to go from a starting. I like to have a starting point and then go from there. So this is the name, and this, if I wanted to just copy and paste this here, I could, but I'll leave it a little open. You could also make this a parameter if you think you're going to change it. I'm just going to just leave it hard-coded. That we'll need a service role, so I might need to make another ARN, another IAM role. I might just use the same one. Artifacts, I don't think I need artifacts. Let's see which ones are required. Let's go through this list. You have artifacts. Okay, we will have artifacts. So I don't need type no artifacts. I do need a type of artifact. Artifact identifier. Disable. So what I'm planning on doing is creating a parameters file within code build and exporting that to code pipeline, then using that parameters file, which is just a JSON file, whenever I create my whenever I deploy my CloudFormation template in this step. So this step outputs the parameters, which is going to have the S3 version, and this runs it and updates it with that S3 version. So I do need, yeah, I just need the, what is this called? Type no artifacts. Code pipeline. Build output generated through code pipeline. Okay. Well, I will do that because that's what I want to output. That's nifty. You can see that they're all pretty much made for each other. Yeah, you can. Yeah, they're all pretty much made for each other. You can plug and play as you see fit. You can add in custom stuff if you want, but AWS makes sure that you can do custom stuff as well. But it does really help that a lot of this stuff is kind of built to work together. Like you can see all this code pipeline stuff in here. Location. Okay, so it doesn't look at location. I don't really care about these. Name. Set to code pipeline, it ignores it. Set to code pipeline, it ignores it. I'm guessing that's not applicable either. Set to code pipeline, it ignores it. Path, it's code pipeline, it ignores it. So if you set your artifact type to code pipeline, it looks like it ignores everything else. So that makes it a little easier on us. This badge enabled. This is nifty if inside of your README you want to have a little badge. I'm sure I could find one pretty quickly. Some of the top repositories probably have them. Like these, right? Like this is a badge. So if you enable a badge, it will it'll point a specific URL to a badge, which is either build passed, build failed, build in progress, and then you link that static URL, and then the static URL just points to a different badge depending on the state that code build is in. So that's a fun way if you want one of those badges on your README. Build batch config. I don't think we want that. I'm doing batches. Cache. I'm not going to do caching. Description. Encryption key. Encryption and KMS in AWS is its own complete topic. I'm going to ignore this for now because it'll use a default KMS. I'm guessing if we're not going to have to worry about that right now. If you don't specify a value, it uses the AWS managed CMK for S3, which is fine. You can manage your own keys if you'd like, but it gets a little hairy because if you mess with keys or somehow something happens to that key and it gets deleted from AWS and you don't have a backup of it, then your information, your data is inaccessible just about for the life of unless you had a backup somewhere else, you can't access that data. They make sure you're pretty secure. Build environment settings for the project. So if you want to add in environment variables, but I'm doing that here. I will use the S3 bucket name. So I'm not going to worry about that. File system locations. I'm not going to worry about that. Log config. Not going to worry about that. This is just, you can output your logs somewhere. You can output into CloudWatch or S3. I guess or both. And if you want, if you can grab those logs and send them in an email if a build failed or succeeded, or you can grab those logs and put them in a Slack channel or whatever. You can do some fun stuff with logs coming out of CloudWatch or S3. The name, I believe I already have a name in there. I'm curious if service role is required. Yes. Dependent AWS services. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm just going to use this code pipeline role because I think everything I wanted to do in code pipeline is what I want to do in code build. Whereas I queued timeout in minutes, not going to worry about that. Secondary artifacts, secondary sources, that would get hairy if you had somehow two sources from code pipeline. I don't know how you could do that. Service role, source, it probably wasn't meant for this secondary source, probably not meant for code pipeline. Source. Can I say code pipeline? I thought I could. Oh, whoops, I'm on the wrong one. Type source. Not source version. Type. There it is. That's what I wanted. It is code pipeline. Makes it pretty easy, actually. I kind of like this. The more and more I'm looking at it, it seems like all this extra configuration that I've done in the past to get a code build instance running is just not necessary. Build spec we will need, and this is what I'm going to add in here. Okay, so I can choose to not give it a build spec, and it will just use this one. And then I'm gonna, was that all I needed to do? What else required? I guess we'll find out soon enough. I'm guessing just because it's so well integrated with code pipeline that I'm not gonna have to worry about anything else with the source version. I don't think I need to worry about tags. I don't need to worry about the version ID of the object. Interesting. Source version might be an interesting thing to play around with and come up with a use case for, but I'm not going to do that right now. So this is what a build spec looks like. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and then start trimming away at stuff. this is a way to add in environment variables in the build spec. So if you didn't want to statically define an environment variable, or it might change from build to build depending on um, who knows, depending on a multitude of variables, this is where you would add in those new environment variables that you want passed in. I know that I'm not going to need. I'm actually just gonna. Oh, I need the version. Where did my? Yeah, you need this. Oh, there it is. Whoops. So yeah, I'm just gonna delete the env. I don't need that. Then there's install. Sometimes it'll ask you, or I know you can add in a build image, so it'll build off of a specific Docker image. All code build really is a Docker image that you run commands inside of. So you can run. Let me see if I can find this. Runtime versions. That might be part of it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but you can even. I'm pretty sure you can build it off of a Docker image. The install. This would be like your npm install. And again, like I said, these are just bash scripts, right? It's just, or bash commands, sorry. That's all it is. This index, well, this probably won't need anything. I don't know if I ever initialized my repository. Well, there we go. I wonder what happens if you npm install something that doesn't have any. Oh, okay. It still just goes through. Cool. So I'll just npm install it. That would be better for like future iterations. Then you have these commands, and then finally, I'm guessing the finally is kind of like a try catch finally type situation before it exits out. If a command that you try to run errors out, it'll kick out the rest of the build spec. So if anything within this list of bash scripts fails, then you're kind of out. The pre-build, I would say this is where you would do your npm test, npm lint, that type of thing. Any static code analysis that you want to do. Is that a valid command? I think it is. I think it's a valid command. We'll find out soon enough when I try to run this if it doesn't run. Another thing you can do is just comment it out. I'll just do that since I know that'll work for me. That's where I would test it. And then the build, if you're running like Webpack or Babel or something, if you need to actually build your, I keep acting like everyone's only going to write a JavaScript application, but Java, you could compile it here, whatever it is that you need to do. I think for me, my build is mainly going to be pushing everything to S3, zipping everything up, pushing it to S3, and then getting the version. So I'm just going to go ahead and write these out so I don't forget them. We want to zip package, push to S3, get S3 version. And that'll be it. And then my post build, I don't think I'll need to do a post build. I'm not going to do reports, but you can add reports, testing reports, if you're running unit tests or whatever, as long as they're in the same or the right file format. It'll output your, it'll output your reports in a nice way if you're used to I guess I haven't spun it up yet, but report groups, it'll add all your reports into this window, and you can see trends or whatever. I think Jenkins has a similar feature. I used Jenkins at one point in time, but not my Not my favorite thing. So, and this is the new part for me. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that this is whatever I put under this files is what is passed to my deploy in source artifact. This will be build artifact. Whatever I output in here will be passed into there. What is this? Output artifacts. Input artifacts. We'll have output artifacts, and my output artifact will be called build artifact. I don't know why I have that in a string. I'll need serverless API.yml, and then I will need I will call it, how about just template configuration.json. I'm guessing I won't need a post. Sure, I'll make a post build. This will be my get S3 version, and then create template configuration.json. Okay. Now let's figure out how to actually do all these things. Zipping a package. So again, I like to go back to AWS documentation. This is how you deploy a Lambda function. You zip up some files, you upload it to your Lambda function, and then your code's there. I guess you'll see more whenever it actually starts going through. Make sure it's still recording. Deploying services. It's been a while since I've done it through a zip. Normally I just have commands that I can kind of copy and paste. There you go. You have to zip it. So I'll just zip. I'll just need index.js and node modules. That won't be there at that time because I don't have any packages. It's just the index, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Well, and I will call that deployment package.zip, and all it will have in it is the index file. And I believe that's all I'll need. You can see these are, manually build a deployment package, and then, well, I guess you can verify it if you unzip it again just to make sure, but this is saying, just because I didn't know this when I first saw this command in the wild, you're zipping up these files, which is, so just current directory, -r is recursive, and then this is where it outputs, the file that it outputs to. So this is saying that it wants to create a zip file in the directory above where it currently is, and it wants to create that zip file out of all of the files and all the folders in the current directory. That's what this command is saying. So on the flip side, this command is saying I want to zip up index.js and I want to put it in deployment package.zip. I'm hoping that works. We'll find out soon enough when I try to run my build spec or my code build instance. Now we're pushing to S3. This is an AWS CLI command, and it looks just like a bash command, just cp, like copy. So AWS S3, and then I think you need is this the bucket? There we go. Local path S3 URI. So that's what we're looking for. So this is, and one thing to keep in mind is code build already has the AWS CLI built into it, so you don't have to go through the trouble of installing the AWS CLI in this Docker container. It's already there. I wonder if this will throw anything, or if I need to tell it what node versions I want. I guess we'll find out. I don't care really about any of those flags, just where it's going. Can you give me an example? Like having an example just to make sure. Copy this to S3. There we go. So I want to copy package.zip to S3. I have to put this in quotes because I'm going to use my environment variable that I am passing in here. So this environment variable will always be passed into my co-build instance, and I just want to, oh, I guess you have to give it the name as well. So I want to copy it there, and I'm curious. I'm hoping that the versioning works and everything, but we're gonna find out real soon. I like that this is so simple. It's we don't have to wrap our heads around anything too complex to be able to figure out what the commands are. Then I did find something the other day which is gonna make this possible. There's an S3 API, so not just S3, but S3 buckets also have an API, and since this API, or this S3 bucket that I'm writing to, has versioning turned on, I'm hoping what happens, and I'll have to make adjustments if this doesn't work. What I'm hoping will happen is, since I'm overriding, oops, I need to build spec. Since I'm overriding this every time, I'm hoping that it just keeps versioning it, and whenever I override it, I can get the new version, and it should be somewhere in here. Something like get object version. Maybe get object, and then it'll give me the versions. Version ID, so maybe what's the output? Output is version ID. There it is. And then I think I think JQ is also, I've only ever used JQ from examples that other people have written, but yeah, it's like a setalk grep type deal. So JQ is a lightweight and flexible command line JSON processor, so you can pipe the output of this into JQ and then parse out what it is you're looking for. And I'm guessing that this is going to take a couple tries to get correct. What am I looking for? Yeah, it's called get object, and then get object dash dash bucket and then dash dash key. So dash dash bucket. Oops. I'll just do this. Just copy and paste it. That's the bucket. And then the key is always going to be deployment package. And it looks like that's all I would have to do, and then I can pipe that into JQ. Let's see. There's a certain syntax with it that I am not entirely familiar with. So I guess this is pulling out an index from an array. I think I can do dot whatever I'm hoping. So if I pipe this JQ dot, what was it, version ID. I'm hoping this is it, but we are about to find out. And I'm going to put all of this in these, well, I'll do it first without, just to see what it looks like. See, I'm going to do steps of this. So this is going to be wildly verbose, but I want to go kind of one step at a time. S3 version, and then that'll be echoed into this. This one, I don't want anything on it, so we're kind of stepping. So we're gonna see it first, just run, and then we're gonna pipe it into JQ, and then if it works, then it's already going to be an S3 version, and then I'm going to echo that into template configuration.json, and so that's how I'm going to create my JSON file. And this is going to be called S3 version. Type string description. And I'll do, I'll go ahead and do, make all this configurable. But I'm going to set defaults on these guys, just because I'm probably not going to want to change them. And then the S3 bucket, yeah. I don't know if I like that I have it in two places, because that means if I ever want to change it, I have to change it in two places. I'll leave that, and then I'll also pass it in here. So I will pass in S3 bucket, and then I'll also pass in the bucket name. So it's still all coming from, oops. It's still all coming from code pipeline. So if I change it in code pipeline, it'll ripple down to here, even though I have the default. It should still get all the way down there. And then for this, the S3 version. And if this all works on the first time, I'll be quite surprised. Is that what it is? I forget the right arrows. Let's try it out real fast. Okay, that's it. Okay. That'll be the configuration file. Okay, just making sure I'm not streaming. That's how I accidentally messed up the last video. Well, I hope that that's correct. And then I guess we'll just kind of see what happens and then go from there. That was a lot, actually. That was a lot to mess with real fast. Environment. Okay, so here's where you can actually put there we go. So it's not actually in the build spec, it's in, yeah, okay. This is where you define, if you want to define a Docker image, you can define a custom Docker image and it'll pull it from Docker Hub. Or you can just use an AWS built-in image. So way back when I was building the build spec, I was wrong. The build spec is not where the Docker image would live. It's in the CloudFormation. It's in the CloudFormation definition of code build. So this needs to be get the images. I forget what the images are. Maybe, yeah. Okay, I'll just use this. I'm pretty sure it's what I use. And then this is the, like EC2s have types, like a T3 micro or T3 extra large. This is more or less the same thing. They have, let me see if I can find, yeah, so it's just the compute type is just a computer with so much memory and so many vCPUs. Certificate, probably don't need. Environment variables, I'm not going to set because I'm going to pass them in through code build instead. Image pull credentials. This is what if you're pulling a Docker image from Docker Hub or something, you have to give it image pull credentials for which to pull from Docker Hub. And that's what it uses. Privilege mode is if you actually want to run Docker commands within your code build instance in your build spec, you have to give it privileged mode. Registry credentials is the follow-up to image pull credentials type, and then type is if you want, I guess, ARM, Linux GPU. I'm just going to use Linux container. I don't need environment variables. I'm just getting passed in a different way. Timeout is 10 minutes, which is quite generous, but whatever. I'll just leave it. So I'll go ahead and update that, and then I will update my code pipeline. I could be doing all this from the CLI, but I don't have credentials set up to do that. And I definitely don't want to do that with the screen recording. But in the same way that I'm making API calls from the CLI, I can do that as well. Not I can't, anyone can do that as well with CloudFormation. So let me pull those up. There's a CloudFormation CLI type, and you can create stack, you can update stacks, you can get all the stacks you have. Yeah, anything. I think it's not authorized to perform something. I'll get back to that in just a second before I forget this train of thought. Just about anything you can do in the UI, anything you can do in the console, you can script out. The way I like to think about it is AWS, they didn't build the console. They built an API, and then everything else is built on top of that. CloudFormation uses the API, code build, code pipeline. So when code pipeline is calling CloudFormation through this stage, it's calling the API. It's not using some weird way. It's all microservices based. So it's going to call its own API. Code pipeline doesn't manage how CloudFormation builds anything. It calls the API in the same way you could call it from the CLI. Code build is not authorized to perform assume role on my code pipeline. So this is an issue that I had before that unfortunately I didn't get on my screen capture, but I think what's happening is that code build can't assume this role, and that's why it's failing, because it can't STS assume role, and I need to allow this service to assume role. So now that that's updated, I'm going to go ahead and try again. We'll see if that solves that issue. This is a lot of it, is kind of going through all the troubleshooting. You're never going to remember anything or everything, so it's good practice. And there's some things that I kind of inherently know off the bat that are going to cause problems that I've run into multiple times before, so I know to fix those before they even happen. And it's all just a learning process. You just have to iterate through everything. This one looks like it might take though. Cool. Yeah, it looks like it's going to take. Shoot. Configuration key. Expected format is JSON array. Okay. I'm supposed to give it a JSON array, and instead of giving it a JSON array, I think I just gave it an object. No, I gave it an array. I believe I have had. Oh, this doesn't look right, does it? Yeah, that doesn't look right. I think that's probably it. I'm curious if this will work. I've had it before where I couldn't use single quotes. I had to use double quotes and escape the double quotes within the object itself. I've had that happen to me before. Um, yeah, I'll just keep that in mind. That might be an issue in just a second. It depends on if we get that error again or another similar error about the configuration item. So let's see, after this is done, let's just say this runs all the way through and it works. I zip my deployment package, I copy it to my S3 bucket. I could make this an environment variable too in case I wanted to change the deployment package. I mean, it's not entirely important, but I might do it. I might do it later. And then I get the version, and then I create my configuration file with the S3 bucket name and the S3 version. That gets pushed out into code pipeline as my build artifact, and then this calls this. Okay, so I need my parameters file in here. See how this is doing? Wow, okay, that's good. Awesome, that worked. That's good to see. And then let's CloudFormation code pipeline. So after I output my configuration, I'm not actually using it. So next, I need to use it. Code pipeline. So it'll be in a similar place as this. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was looking for. What is this page? I should probably bookmark this page. Action structure reference. Yeah, this is a useful page. Been going back to it quite a bit lately. I need configuration, template path, parameter over template configuration. That's the one I'm looking for. So in addition to the template itself, I need to import something similar to that. So my build artifact is going to have a JSON file in it called template configuration. Oops. See, this is where it starts looking, you know, maybe it'd be best if I just stuck to kebab case or something. If you have a very strong preference on what kind of casing system you use, I'm jealous. Maybe I should just go all in on kebab case. Starts looking a little bit messy in my opinion. You know, I've got some snake case, some Pascal case. Sometimes I do all under case. We've got some camel case. Got some kebab case. It just gets a little, you know. Maybe I'll just go all in on kebab case. That looks like it updated, so that's good. I should have a code build project now. There it is. So I'll be able to see that whenever this gets pushed through. I wonder if it'll release on its own. I did a build spec that was 6 minutes ago. I can go ahead and release a change. We'll just see what happens. It's probably going to break. That's one of the things that I've learned from AWS and I'm really happy about is it's so cheap to make stuff break, and you learn so much from it. You might as well just go ahead and do it, break it. Like the faster I can break something, the faster I'm going to be able to correct it, and the faster I'm going to be able to make it right. So just let it break. It's okay. Aha. So I need to also give code build permissions, IAM permissions on that role. So my code pipeline role, really reading the error messages is super helpful. Seeing that it turned red doesn't really give me much, but they do a really good job of having informative error messages. So my code pipeline role, which is this guy up here, is not authorized to perform code build start build on my code build instance, which makes sense because I didn't give it any code build rights. So I'm going to go into IAM and find the correct managed policy ARN to give this role to let it run code build. So in the policies, go to IAM role, go to policies, and then type in code build, and there's probably going to be something in here. I'm going to guess that I'll need admin access to it. Code build. That gives it a lot of stuff, actually. I don't know if I need all of that. I do know I need some S3 stuff. List all my buckets. Wonder if it'll... Yeah, I don't think I need this stuff. I don't think I need this. I might need it. Yeah, I mean, I'll just give it to it. Like I've said before in my other video, all this, there are a lot in here with admin access or full access. This is not best practice. If you're really trying to build something and trying to build something in a secure manner, please take the time to go through and only give your roles least privilege and not do what I'm doing by sharing one role across code pipeline and code build. It's not best practice. I'm doing this just to show how I'm not trying to focus on the security, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'll go back through in a later video and talk about security and limiting IAM rules and everything. But for now, that's not my focus. Just keep that in mind. This is not best practice. So I gave it my code build admin access. The only other thing that I'm thinking I could need is some sort of S3 access. And the only reason I say that is because I don't know how it reads versions. Let's see what S3 has in it. Just get bucket version. See, that's probably list bucket versions. This is probably what I'm going to need. And the only reason I'm thinking that is because I'm calling get object on it. Is there a get object? I wonder if that's enough. And if the code build admin policy had that. It did not. So my guess is we're going to come across that issue once we're inside of the code build instance itself. Failed just now. I hope that didn't actually try to run through. No, failed 3 minutes ago. Okay. It said just now, it just hadn't updated. There are a lot of things in AWS that are a little, in the UI at least, that are slow to refresh. So keep that in mind. Even though something might have a timestamp on it, but not necessarily be correct. So cool, our code build instance is running now. You see this in progress. You can go over to code build itself and see the build. So let's see how it runs through. You can see in this UI, there's build logs, there's phase details. I'm going to go ahead and add code build up top here since I'm using it. There we go. So it failed in the post build, which is okay. I wanted to see those logs. So phase details, reports. This is where you would see those reports if you have unit test coverage and you want to see what they look like. I'm sure that would be really good to look into. Environment variables. So my S3 bucket name was passed in through code pipeline. So this guy, we know he's working. Build details, you can see all sorts of stuff that you have configured behind the scenes. This is all, you know where it is through the templates, if you build it through templates. And then there's some dashboard metrics. I'm not too keen on looking at those right now. Interesting. So it did upload the deployment package. Okay. Interesting. Okay, object. I think I needed to pipe it out. So I've seen stuff like this before where if you get it, you have to give it a file at the end. Note that the out file is specified without an option. Name such as out file. Okay. So yeah, if you try to invoke a Lambda function, um, you'll need to put an out file, stuff like that. I've seen it before. I'm not as familiar with the CLI as I am with other parts of AWS, but I'm trying to get more familiar, and that's why I'm doing it right now. So it just looks like I need to add an out file. Um, hmm. Okay. Let me. So now that it's run through, I wonder if I can. No, I can't retry the build. So that's a little unfortunate. If your source is say GitHub, you can just retry the build, um, and run through everything all over again. I can though in here. So this isn't something I entirely. Oh wait, what? Oh, because my build spec is in here. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do all this through here. Let's do get object out file, and then I'm going to cat my out file, and I'm hoping that this does not. It might need an out file. I'm not gonna put it just to see what it does. I'm not going to put an out file in these lower commands just to see if the pipe is enough. I wonder if AWS will, if the CLI is smart enough to realize that I am still doing something with the output. We'll find out soon. So cool. Yeah, the polling is actually really quick. My code pipeline isn't set up with a webhook. I set the code pipeline up in an earlier video. It's not set up with a webhook, but the polling works really fast, really quickly. It's kind of impressive. So I'll let my code build instance start running through. We can see all the good logs. Ah, so I didn't. Wow, yeah. Oh no. I did get a problem. That's too bad. That's the out file. That doesn't look right. Huh. I wonder how it must. How weird. How weird that it does that. Yeah, the encoding is strange. That's the same file, and I'm catting it, and it's not. That's weird. Oh well. So I know in the subsequent command, I figured I would, but I do need to give it an out file. And then hopefully I can get the version ID. It looks like it's the right format, and then that'll be output into S3 version. And then let's go ahead and, for debugging's sake, cat that. And then before I do this, I'm going to echo S3 version. Okay. That won't go through this time, but it'll go through next time, which is fine with me. Oh. Oh, whoops. This probably took like 2 seconds to get the new commit. This is nifty, especially that this pipeline is free. I like that they did that. You can have. I looked in one of my earlier video. I looked at the pricing for Code Pipeline. I'm pretty sure this entire stack you could probably run this for free for a long time. It's actually kind of impressive. Code Pipeline is free for one instance per account, and then I'm pretty sure Code Build is by the minute, but I'm pretty sure Code Build is really cheap as well. And then Lambda function and API gateway are known to be just incredibly cheap. So I'm going to go ahead and prompt it to go out and get the new commit, just because I don't want to wait. And while I'm doing that, I want to look at the pricing for Code Build. It said it succeeded, which I think is funny. What were the details? Unknown property in template configuration. Oh, that's just okay. Wait. Oh, I never changed my template. But I don't understand what this is trying to say. Unknown property S3 bucket S3 version. I don't know why it had a problem with those, but whatever. Cool. It did get the version ID. We can see that's correct. S3 version, unterminated quoted string. Oh, I added an extra string in there. And that failed the entire code build. That's funny. Okay. Go ahead and delete that quote. And since I know that this works, I'm going to go ahead and just remove those guys. And then I'm going to add, take the zip file out. What does the index actually look like? Is it the same thing? I think it's the same thing. Cool. Then I'm going to add in these guys. Add those guys in. I'm very curious as to why it couldn't cat that correctly. Yeah. I'm not sure. I wonder how it might just encode it in a weird way. But it looks like everything was working up until that point, which is exciting. So I'll go ahead and release this again, tell it to go get the newest code, and continue looking into the pricing. So yeah, it's based off of minutes in builds. If you have a free, there is a free tier. Oh, okay. Build of general 1 small. Is that what I have? General 1 small. I get 100 build minutes for free. Well, that's nice. Yeah, S3 does cost money to let objects just sit in. It's not much. But so this is what it looks like. After you go into the S3 bucket, this is what the versions look like. So you can show, and then these are all the different versions. So the reason I think that it might be different using code commit. I've never used AWS code commit. It's pretty much their GitHub alternative that's in AWS, but you can have I wonder if using commit hashes as a way to version using different keys instead of using the S3 version ID would be better, for the only reason being I don't know what this is, right? I don't know what commit this actually is. You'd have to do some investigative research to figure out that at around 707, I committed the hash XYZ, and that must be what this version is. So versioning might be a little tricky in that sense. Cool, we succeeded. There's our output. That doesn't look right. It looks like so the S3 version already has quotes in it, just the way that JSON works, I guess, or JQ work. I've never used JQ before, so I'm surprised that this even worked right off the bat. JQ, I've only heard good things about JQ, but that was really easy, and I'm impressed. So it just keeps the quotes within the output. So this is output with the quote string. So in my build spec, I also add some extra quotes. So I just need to take those out because it's just double quoted. Uh, the template, I wonder if it ran even. Template configuration is not valid. That doesn't give me much, but I'm going to go ahead and change this, push it again, and see if that helps it. I'm guessing not. I wonder if, yeah, we'll find out. There is some trial and error with all of this. It's good stuff to learn, though. I'm hoping whoever's watching this, I hope you can learn from this as well. I don't think I need this. I'll just leave all these windows up. There's no reason to take them down right now. So my hope is once I can get this working, once I can get the templates updating. So I think the video is called part 2 of building a code pipeline, a CI/CD pipeline. I think I left it off where you could only update the infrastructure through the CI/CD pipeline. So in this video, I wanted to finish off by updating. There we go. The double quotes aren't in there. By updating code as well. So not only am I updating infrastructure, I'm updating code as well. That's what I was hoping to do in this video, and hopefully we're getting kind of close. Also, just know that the way I'm doing this is not the only way to do this. I'm not claiming it's the best way to do this. It is only a way to do this. There are tons of different ways, and everything's going to be different. Let's see if this is actually updating. Doesn't look like it yet. It failed. Okay. Unknown property and template configuration. I'm very curious as to why this is not. This really doesn't want to. Take. Really does not want to take. The S3 bucket and the S3 version. I wonder. Oh, Code Pipeline. Code Pipeline has a weird way to input this file. I don't think it's just a flat JSON file, so maybe that's part of it. Let me see if that might be it. Template configuration file. Yeah, here we go. It's not just an easy. I need whatever is in this parameters. That's what I need. So, okay. I'm not doing anything. I'm doing stack policy. I'm not doing tags. So I only need parameters. So in my build spec, I need to change this around a little bit. I need to add in this parameters, and then that fills in these guys, and then we have one more closing bracket. It's just an object of S3 bucket and S3 version. Is that correct? This closes this. This closes this. I don't think this is right. Let me. This is something sometimes VS Code comes in handy. I've been using it to do stuff like this quite frequently. Oh, I forgot I had you can format it. I forgot I had format document. Okay, so that's what I want. I forgot that third. I saw 3 brackets here, and that's what threw me off. But I forgot that one of them was for this escaped environment variable. So that's probably what it is. I don't need that anymore. So I have one. Oops, that's not right. This is for the outer one. This is for the inner one. This is for this one. Okay, I think that's fine. And that's probably that makes sense now. This in template configuration, these properties aren't supposed to be in the top level of template configuration. It expects parameters, tags, and stack policy. So that makes more sense now. Let's go ahead and add that. Oops. I'm hoping that's what that was. I guess the unfortunate part is that we have to go back through all these steps again. It does take a little while. There is another thing to keep in mind is there is lag between what code pipeline shows and what's actually happening in these resources that it's controlling, that code pipeline is orchestrating. Code pipeline's a really cool tool. The more I use it, the more I just really appreciate its power. Also, another thing to notice and check out is that every time we've run this, we have gotten a different version. So I'm pretty sure that this method is going to work out the way I expected it to. So you can see what I was getting at before. What code pipeline shows and the resources that it's controlling isn't necessarily it's not split second, right? So code build is done. It is successful. It's done, but it still shows in progress here. So, I guess don't necessarily take code pipeline as a source of truth. If you want bleeding edge to know what's happening with your resources, you should probably go to the resource itself. But I don't think it's completely necessary. Parameter value specified for a template which does not require them. Interesting. I guess which does not require them. I guess I could put them as overrides, but my guess is that it doesn't care about it because I have a default here. Yeah, that's my guess. I'm going to, while I'm at it, I'm going to add in I'm going to add in the deployment package. Just because it'll be easy to do right now. So that's passed in as S3 key name, and then I'm going to, all of these are just going to be referenced as S3 key name. I'm just going to replace all these as inside quotes. Oops. S3 key name. Place those, and then I also want to add. Oops. An extra parameter called S3 key, and this will be S3 key name. And then, oops, one. I'm just gonna make this that way, and now everything is a parameter, and everything should take. I hope. That might have also introduced something that I wasn't aware of until I run it, and we see that it doesn't work. But sometimes you gotta be wrong. Deployment package. Okay. Now I'm gonna update this. I wonder if it's gonna. Oh, I gotta push this. It's gonna race against the clock. I've often wondered where the limit between having something parameterized and not is getting too far. You know, I mean, I could make every string in here a parameter, but obviously it doesn't matter if that action name is a parameter. I think you'd probably also start hitting AWS limits for how many parameters you pass into a template, but I've often wondered if there's, you know, when is it too far? I haven't really figured that out personally, to be honest. There we go. Code build's already in progress. These are probably all duration 1 minute, so if I have 11 builds, you know, I'm already pushing. I've used 1/10 of my free tier for code build. It can stack up pretty fast, so make sure you are aware that AWS can cost some money. Just be wary. Be careful. Oh, this looks like a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, the S3 version didn't come out. Yeah, I think that was a mistake in the build spec. Don't need those quotes because there were already quotes. Where else is the key? That's fine, that's fine. That's fine, okay. Wonder if it'll, maybe I have to refresh it. I'm just gonna release a new one. Does it still say it's in progress? Yeah, okay, there we go. This has been fun. I haven't actually I haven't used code pipeline like this before to have code pipeline orchestrate the build process as well. Because like I said, if your company that you're working for uses GitHub, then you're probably going to have to have some sort of integration with GitHub Enterprise. Well, unfortunately, code pipeline, at least when I made it, it didn't have an integration out of the box with GitHub Enterprise, only GitHub. So, but code build has an integration for webhooks from GitHub Enterprise. So I set code build up to be triggered off of the webhook, and then after code build exports artifacts then they get uh, put into an S3 bucket, and the S3 bucket is what triggers code pipeline to start running. Error while executing. Uh-oh. User provided path does not exist. Where's the S3 key? That's what I'm using, right? Let me go ahead and in the pre-build, I'll just go ahead and echo out all of. I use the quotes. I don't think you necessarily need the quotes with bash scripting, but I'll go ahead and do them. Okay, there's that. Yeah, I don't know why it isn't. Do I have it anywhere else? Do I output it? Zip S3 key name index. Run command. User provided path does not exist. Oh. Did I? That's why. Okay, it was a code pipeline problem. My S3 key was set because I copy and pasted this chunk to put in this environment variable, and I forgot that this was the value. I didn't change the value to the deployment package name parameter, so that's that. Yeah, that makes sense. What's my diff? Did I change anything? No. Okay. There's that, and then I'll go ahead and update this template to point to the correct value. Oops. Well, that's what'll happen if you don't check that box. Get a big red banner. We're close. We're close. Like I said, it's all those little tiny things. They all kind of sneak up on you. Starting, she'll get the new commit. Then once it gets the new commit, run down, start the new code build. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it will run through the entire way this time. A lot of speed bumps, but we're getting there. Let's tell the logs. We've zipped it. We've copied it. Nice. Uploaded deployment package. It's all looking good. We've got the bucket, the key, the version. It's all in there. It's completed successfully. Now we get to deploy it to CloudFormation. We're back on this final action, this final stage. Like I said, it takes a while sometimes. It's all just API calls, so API calls and polling. Is it actually going to update anything? Did it already update? I don't think it already updated. Did it fail? Ah. For a template which does not require them. I thought I took all those out. Oh no. I think that's I guess so. There is something in code pipeline um, in this deploy stage. Instead of template configuration, it's called parameter overrides. Let me find those while we're waiting for this guy to build. No. Here. So there's template configuration, which is what I did. So I put in the parameters, but then there's also something called parameter overrides. So this one, it will, I have used this before. You can use a JSON object or set parameter values in your template. JSON. So you can override default parameters with this configuration item. So it will go in here, parameter overrides, and then you add in whatever it is you need to add in until the pipeline is running. So yeah, yeah, I'm I'm just gonna stay out of the parameter override stuff unless you don't know a value until the pipeline is running. I wonder if you can. Well, I said I was gonna stay out of it. I'm curious if I could have, instead of built a, if yeah, no, you probably can't parse it out of this JSON file. If I was, okay, so what I was wondering about is if I could take the same idea I used here, except use it in parameter overrides, but I don't think you can. I think you have to give it an actual, yeah, you have to give it a JSON object, object name. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna stay out of it for now. I have used it before as like a fixed uh, JSON object, but it sounds like that's not not preferred behavior. Well, it looked like code pipeline was going. Ah, shoot. What? Bucket key version. Bucket key version. None of them were required. I'm very confused as to why code pipeline is still giving me this. Well, I'm gonna have to Google this because I am confused as to why this is still happening. Oh my goodness. I just listed these at the top level. I didn't put them under a parameters. Oh no. Well, that's embarrassing. Like I said, it's the little things. Little things are what'll get you. There is something that someone mentioned on that question that I was just looking at though, that I want to go back to, and that is CFN lint. This is CloudFormation. It's a linter. Um, if you have, I don't even know if I have Python 3 on this computer. Oh, I do. Okay. Oops. It's just like any like ESLint whatever. It's the same thing, but for CloudFormation templates, it's actually pretty useful. Let me go ahead and install this. Is it just CFNLint? Pip install CFNLint. Okay. It is pretty helpful, and there is a VS Code extension for it. Where is it? Yeah, there we go. And this will actually lint your templates as you're writing them, and it has been very useful for me. Do I have to restart? No, I don't. I don't know what that is. Won't lint that? Maybe I have to do something else to... Oh, looks like it's crashing. Well, there is a VS Code extension, and it is useful. I have used it before. I would recommend it, but I obviously don't have it set up, and it's not working for me right now. So, but it is very helpful. Do I have it? No. You can also run cfn lint on just a template instead of having it in VS Code, and it'll tell you. So there you go. Invalid property resources. S3. Oh, well, that's good to know. It's wrong. I guess I'm using the... Well, that's probably going to break since I don't have the S3 stuff. Ah, it's S3 object version. Well, that'll break, but that's fine. Then I'll update it. So CFN lint caught that for me. Thank you, CFN lint. See if there's anything else. Nothing else. See if this broke. If it broke, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run through code pipeline because I think it'll be useful to show this error that I'm thinking it's going to give. So I mentioned this before. The way I have this set up right now, this is just create update, and if your template is in an invalid state, anything that's red, I believe we're gonna find out soon, it will fail. This will fail because it can't update the template if it's in a bad state, and that's just something that action in code pipeline does. It won't. It just kind of throws in the towel, kind of throws up a red flag that you need to actually manually go in and fix something because something has broken. So I'm gonna wait for the pipeline to run back through, and if this works, well, that would be exciting. Yeah, wow, cool. That'll be the full. That'll be a working CI/CD pipeline, and really, if you only joined in for this video, you wouldn't have missed out on much. Because the only thing, well, okay, there were some things, all the initial code pipeline setup, but as far as all the building and all of the configuration for the template, that was all done mostly in this video. And then the CloudFormation, I didn't do too much special with the CloudFormation setup. So, well, cool. See if this runs through. If this runs through, then I will take a look at the Lambda function, make sure that it's working how I intended it to, and then I will go ahead and change something in the code, push it, and show that the Lambda function updates as well. I would really like to see that. So yeah, like I said, oh wow, look at that. Okay, well, it did update. I'm kind of surprised. I didn't expect that to update, but good on you, code pipeline. Yep, cool. That'll succeed since the CloudFormation stack succeeded. Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and kick this off. Add the string in there. And while that's all going to start going through, I will talk about each stage individually now that we have a working pipeline. That's exciting. I'm glad that this is working. I'll wait for this to poll. Um, so this is the working pipeline. Ingress step being pulling code from GitHub. I didn't set up a webhook. It's just pulling the code, pulling the repository. So there you can see it just pulled in the new change. Then that code gets pushed into code build. Code build will run that code, package it up, create the template configuration that we need for CloudFormation. After it does that, it outputs that artifact to CloudFormation, which pulls in the template and the configuration for that template from the build artifact, goes into CloudFormation, updates the CloudFormation template, and because the template is using S3 version as its source of truth for code, and all of our code is stored in that S3 version bucket, it will update the Lambda function with the new code. It'll also keep an update of all of the code changes that we've made. So these versions, if you actually look through all of these versions, you're not going to see anything. No, you're not going to see any difference. Anytime we push, it doesn't. Anytime we push to S3, it creates a new version. It doesn't diff from the old version. It just creates a new one. So keep that in mind. This will start to swell, but I don't know if it'll show us. Maybe it will if I click one. It should delete itself. It should expire after 30 days. So I don't know where in the UI that will be, but let's see. It did update. Cool. This is a different version. So code pipeline ran all the way through, updated our Lambda function, and now we should have the new code in our Lambda function. There you go. It's a full CI/CD pipeline right there. Very simple, but that's the idea of it. That's what I set out to show, and all of the challenges through it. Any mistakes you might also make while you're going through things, but this is it. This is a how fun. That's yeah, cool. It's a working CI/CD pipeline right there. Um, yeah, I lost my train of thought seeing that go through. Um, yeah, the Lambda, or sorry, the S3 bucket is versioned, and those versions should only last 30 days. So there you go. That's the whole thing. That's the working thing right there. One thing I like to do at the very end of one of these, since everything is in a template, I don't worry about being able to recreate this at all. Oh, look at that. Started a new one. I don't worry about recreating this at all. Once I spin up this template, everything's going to run through, everything's going to update as intended. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete everything because it doesn't really matter. I know that I can get it back really easily. So I'm going to go ahead and show you if I try to delete this. If I try to delete the pipeline first and then try to delete the API, there's something that'll happen. This role will not be available. This role, because this role is created in the pipeline template. So keep that in mind. If I delete the pipeline first, I won't be able to delete this because I won't be able to assume this role. So that's a trick to keep in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and start deleting this. And while I delete that, I'll go ahead and give you another tidbit. The S3 buckets that are created in this template and have code data in them, you can't just delete them if they have something in them. You have to actually empty them first. So go ahead and empty it. You have to type in the bucket name to confirm you want to empty it. This is actually a step up from what it used to be. You used to have to actually go into the bucket, like this bucket, and delete everything. You check all the boxes or check this top box. It's not like, it wasn't a crazy difficult thing to do, but obviously it was enough of an inconvenience that AWS added the empty button to the top of the S3 screen. So there you go. After I delete those S3 buckets, I can delete the stack, and we're done. We can create anything and destroy anything at will, and get our working CI/CD pipeline spun up super quick, super easy. So um, thank you very much for watching. If you want to look at the source, that's where my GitHub repository is. It's um, it's Thomas Depp, and then go to /AWS CI/CD demo, and you will be able to find the templates there. Um, and of course, there are two other parts of this video, so that you can watch on my channel. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you later.